Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our Pi Day of Giving virtual speaker series. Today's topic is the crucial role and scope of ergonomics, from your living room office to advanced virtual manufacturing. Now, before we begin today's session, I'd like to start by saying that Ontario Tech University is proud to acknowledge the lands and the people of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation. Our university campus is situated on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas, a branch of the Greater Anishinaabe Nation, which includes Algonquin, Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi, and is covered under the Williams Treaties. These lands remain home to many Indigenous nations and peoples, and as a university community, we are thankful to be welcome on these lands in friendship. And because we don't want to forego this important element of reconciliation, we are also dedicated to increasing our awareness, our understanding, and gratitude for the lands that we share. And since we're conducting this series in a virtual space and scattered all across the province, I'd like to ask everyone just to take a moment now to reflect on the traditional terry that you find yourself on today, the treaty that it is covered under, and your own personal relationship with the land. My name is Jody Cowan, and I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator here at Ontario Tech. Today's session is the third of 10 conversations we're hosting as part of our Pi Day of Giving speaker series. We're really excited to have our Ontario Tech experts here to share their research with you, while also helping to spread the word about our Pi Day of Giving, which really is meant to raise funds for our students. So if you have any questions during today's talk, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen at any point, and we will do our best to get to your questions. These sessions are also being recorded and will be posted to our website. So if you'd like to watch them again later or share with a friend who maybe couldn't make it with us today, that'd be great too. Over the past 2 years, many of us had to work and study from home in less than ideal environments. These experiences have likely demonstrated the crucial role ergonomics plays in maintaining productivity by also reducing musculoskeletal pain and injury. In today's talk, we'll discuss the importance of good ergonomics, highlight traditional risk factors for injury, and we'll offer some low-cost strategies to optimize your home workspace. I would now like to introduce our speaker for today from our Faculty of Health Sciences, Dr. Nick Delfa. Welcome, Dr. Delfa. Dr. Delfa is an assistant professor in kinesiology and the director of the Occupational Neuromechanics and Ergonomics Laboratory here at Ontario Tech. He is a network researcher for the Centers of Research Expertise for the Prevention of Musculoskeletal Disorders. His research program aims to reduce the prevalence of work-related musculoskeletal disorders through enhancement of our knowledge on human capability, function, and performance. Dr. Delfa aims to translate his research into advanced methods that proactively assess injury risk, with particular emphasis placed on integration with proactive work simulation technologies. By doing so, work tasks can be assessed virtually early in the design phase, well before they ever exist in reality, saving both workers and employers from the financial, physical, and emotional burdens of work-related injury. So welcome, Dr. Delfa, and thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Jody, for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be here and great to be contributing to this great initiative, Pi Day. To help support some student initiatives. So my talk today is going to be on the crucial role and scope of ergonomics. I kind of want to talk on this philosophy of how many of us have had to adapt to working at home in less than ideal environments, but I also want to kind of show you some of the emerging areas and how technology can be integrated in ergonomics and in the workplaces. So ideally, I'm going to talk about a brief introduction to ergonomics and some of the traditional work-related injuries. I'll also talk about some of the risk factors for these injuries that we tend to see. And it's a major focus of physical ergonomics, trying to mitigate some of these risk factors. Okay, and then we'll get into what things we can do at home, kind of low budget options. I'm not necessarily going to recommend we go spend thousands of dollars on fancy ergonomics equipment. There's a bunch of small things we can all do to optimize our workspace. And then, as I mentioned, talking about some of the technological impacts we have in the future of ergonomics and some of the research we do in our lab. Okay, so first of all, what is ergonomics? Right, so I'm sure it's become a little more of a term that everyone's familiar nowadays compared to even 5 or 10 years ago. When I took my first ergonomics course in university, I had no clue what it even was. It was just an elective and it looked interesting, and I liked the prof who taught biomechanics the year before, so I took it. And it's crazy where I kind of ended up after that. So ergonomics, if you do a quick Google search, you'll see something like this, a lot of pictures of people sitting at desks, a lot of angles and trying to maintain nice neutral joint postures here, working at a computer. The occasional time you might see someone, a diagram of someone lifting with their legs instead of, hinging at their back. So that's kind of the general perception. And, to be honest, there is a large segment of the population that does have a job working at a desk, right? So many of us here in this presentation likely work at a desk on a computer. So this is a very common job, but, we do have to realize too that, work does exist in a whole lot of different forms, and each of these types of works introduces unique challenges, right? Some involve, forceful exertions, long hours, things that can be heavy on the joints and can lead to achy joints at the end of the day. Some are very awkward positions that you're getting into all day long. Some you're lifting, in very uncontrolled environments and noisy environments, lifting heavy objects. Some of the challenges can be more psychosocial in nature. Right? We all know the stresses that many of our healthcare workers are going through over the last 2 years. And that psychosocial challenges also take a burden and correlate well with physical injuries as well. Right? And then obviously we also have jobs that require and have substantial cognitive challenges. So these all fall under the scope of ergonomics. Okay, it's not just about sitting in the right chair or fitting your chair, right? It involves all work. Okay, so that's the traditional definition, right? It's even being thought of way back in the mid-19th century, right? The science and practice of designing jobs and workplaces to match the capabilities and limitations of the human body. Some of the primary objectives and the goals that we use the science of ergonomics is to increase efficiency and productivity, right? That's a good thing that we can pitch to companies. Maybe you can say if people get hurt, maybe that doesn't build as much of a compelling argument as if you say, yeah, but your workers will not only be healthy and not hurt, but they'll also be more efficient and more productive in the workplace, right? So that really is a helpful argument. Okay, and then the focus of my research and many of my colleagues is to reduce discomfort and injury risk due to work. Okay, so that's kind of the primary concern in physical ergonomics, right? That's more the branch dedicated to reducing work-related musculoskeletal disorders. And these are disorders that primarily focus on our musculoskeletal system. So by that, I mean our skeleton, our muscles, tendons, ligaments, kind of that structural aspect of our body. Okay, and then as well with our nervous system, we have all these nerves that run and innervate our muscles. So really any sorts of disorders to that musculoskeletal and nervous system. But the kicker is that they need to be attributable to some sort of working environment, right? So the work that you do contributes to these conditions, or the conditions are made worse by the work that you do. Okay, so we're not necessarily talking about, blowing your Achilles tendon playing soccer or something like that, or a sporting injury, right? It's very much related to the workplace, because there's things we can do systematically in the workplace to try to mitigate risks. So some of the common work-related musculoskeletal disorders that we see are things like carpal tunnel syndrome, low back injury or low back pain, things like tennis elbow or other tendinitises of the arm. So these are the types of things we're trying to prevent in ergonomics. Okay, and a lot of this comes down to a couple key fundamental risk factors. Okay, so the kind of the major ones that we consider and we're always trying to keep our eye on, and this is not just for ergonomists, but hopefully all of you by the end of this presentation will kind of remember these and try to, at least if you can't completely mitigate some of these risk factors, at least try to reduce them, right? So some of the main ones are posture, right? Getting into these weird postures can put some loading and stress on different areas of your body, right? So that's an important factor. Force, right? That's how much force are you exerting with your body. So if you're lifting heavier objects, that's going to be tougher on your body compared to a lighter object. Another important risk factor is the repetition or the duration that you're doing something. So in highly repetitive tasks like assembly lines or these types of production lines here, we're doing the same thing over and over again without much break. That's a risk factor for physical injury. right? And then obviously the environment that you're in as well can also contribute. Sometimes there isn't much control over that, right? Obviously, if you're outdoors working in very cold environments, there's things you could do in terms of wearing PPE and appropriate clothing, but it is another situation that we need to keep our eyes on, right? And a lot of these individual risk factors are problematic on our own, but where we really get into trouble is when some of these risk factors start overlapping, right? So when you have a bad posture and then introduce a high force into the mix, right, that increases your risk for sustaining a workplace injury. If you now add in a bad posture with a high force, but you're doing it highly repetitively with a high frequency, then, again, that kind of compounds and the risk for injury goes up. So ergonomics is all about trying to first acknowledge and identify these injury risks and then trying to mitigate them as much as possible. Okay, so I'm going to kind of focus in now, kind of case study on office work, because it probably is the majority of what we're doing here. Okay, so in terms of office work, we do see many of these risk factors starting to appear, right? So let's look at this individual here, right? Kind of a slumped over posture, right? There isn't necessarily a lot of force that we're dealing with in seated static office work, but repetition and duration or prolonged awkward postures can be a problem, right? So prolonged postures are generally bad. Our body likes to be moving, get blood flow moving. So these static prolonged postures can be problematic and lead to pain development. Okay, and then another thing too is if we're not really moving a whole lot, we can have constant contact or pressure points at various points of our body, which again can lead to various disorders. So these are kind of the common things we need to be aware of in these office settings. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a myth or fact here. See if we can get a little bit. Feel free to use the chat if you want to display or answer. Just say the statement is a myth or a fact. That's mainly just a kind of conversation starter here. So the first one is there is a single correct posture for office work, right? Basically that on that Google search, all of those things is displaying a correct posture, and we should all be locked into that posture over our entire workday. What do we think? Myth? Any other answers? Yeah, we have a couple individuals saying myth, and that is correct. It's a little bit kind of down to the semantics here, right? So the reality is that there are many good working positions for office work, right? So this is kind of that traditional posture, and that's kind of what you would recommend traditionally. But even if you're leaning backwards, your entire spine could be supported well, right? And you can still have minimal strain on your feet and your knees and the back of underside of your upper legs there. So it is possible to have more than one good posture throughout the day. The big key though is that variation, movement, and good body support are the keys. Okay, so what I like to say is, that good ergonomic posture that you would probably see in all of your ergonomics training courses, think of that as an average posture, right? So throughout the day, you want to be able to have a little bit of movement, right? Obviously within your chair, being able to move, maybe your chair even supports a little bit of movement, like my chair here can tilt me back, but keep me well supported, right? But over the course of the day, if I were to kind of sample and take a picture of me, if my average posture was somewhere around here, then that's what I would try to aim for. Okay, let's do another one here. So myth or fact. Sitting is the new smoking, right? That's kind of this new term or new phrase that's being thrown out there. So sitting is the new smoking. So the best solution to this would be to stand at work. This is a bit of a tricky one because there is maybe a little bit of truth. We all know sedentary behavior is generally poor for your health, right? So in that regard, it is. But traditionally for ergonomics, when we say the solution would be to stand at work, that would be a myth, okay? The truth is that a lot of people can have difficulties with standing, right? If you stand without moving a whole lot for 10, 15 minutes, a lot of people will start to develop pain in their low back, right? So it is a little bit of a nuanced problem. You can't just tell everyone, let's pitch the chairs, let's all stand because sitting is the new smoking, right? Of course, total sitting time is a problem. If We're all sitting down, with sedentary behavior, not really getting much exercise. And of course, that's a bigger picture problem. But we have to be a little bit careful about some of applying this strictly to our work days. Okay, another one. Oops, sorry, I jumped the gun. Workers should not have pain or discomfort if they have expensive ergonomic desks and chairs. Right, so basically sometimes you think, well, my current chair isn't very good, but if I go and spend $1,000 or $1,500 on the Rolls Royce of office chairs, then all my problems will be solved, right? And I kind of gave that one away, but that would also be a myth. Okay, so even with top of the line adjustable furniture and equipment, doing a single task in a single position creates fatigue and discomfort. Okay, so obviously having a good chair will help facilitate having some variability in movement and good support. Okay, so that's their primary feature, right? Giving you that support and adjustability to fit your body. Okay, so they are important, but if you do get your office chair and just lock it in that position and never move, you're still going to be experiencing some pain at the end of the day. Okay, so proper training is an important part of that. If you do get fancy equipment, it's still important to learn how to adjust things to fit your body and how to use it properly and incorporate variability and movement within your day. So now I'm going to shift to a topic that we're all intimately familiar with, right? Working from home. And I feel like we've all kind of adjusted now. We're, 2 years basically into this now where we've all been working home. Many of us have started returning to the office. So some of the things I'll talk about will actually apply to that. But, I always had colleagues sending me pictures of, oh, look at this. I came up with a creative solution here. And this is great. And this is kind of what I want to try to highlight a little bit today. So they're at home too. It's not just about our actual office setup. We have other issues, many of us with kids or other distractors, maybe not an ideal space, or, you're crammed in a small apartment with a spouse or something. So it's definitely been a challenge. So here are a couple of my budget-friendly tips for working at home. Okay, and they also will be things that you can keep in mind as we return back to the office. Okay. So number one is that it really does start with your chair. Okay, so a good ergonomic office chair is always going to be best. And the main reason for that, the things you pay for in a good ergonomic chair are adjustability features. Throughout our population, we all have different sizes of bodies, different heights, different lengths of our arms. Our upper arms are longer, our legs are longer or shorter. Okay, so that adjustability can really help us support our body in the proper way. With the main goal being to try to have that general 90-degree sort of angle with the knees and the elbow, trying to keep the monitor roughly at head height. Okay, so this is kind of the goal that we aim for, but this might not always be possible, especially at home. We weren't all in a position to be able to go and invest in a lot of ergonomic equipment. So, if you do have a chair, you can make some modifications to that chair just on your own, right, to make it ideally suited for you. So if you do have a chair with a sturdy backrest, but it doesn't have very good low back support or lumbar support, you can do something like rolling up a towel and sticking it back there to really complement the curvature of your low back and help support that, right? If the surface of your chair is hard, right, and kind of gives you pain, or maybe your legs start going numb if you sit in your chair for too long, you can put a pillow or a cushion on a hard surface. This can effectively also serve as a way to adjust the height of your chair, right, to bring yourself up to have that 90-degree elbow angle. Okay, and then if you do adjust the height of your chair and maybe your feet aren't resting comfortably on the floor anymore, what you could do is, bring something under your feet, like a box or maybe a textbook or something like that, right? And these can help support your feet on the floor, right? So it just it's all about bringing your body into alignment and really trying to stay away from these sorts of things here, right? So that brings me to this next point. Number 2 recommendation is to try to use your laptop peripherals. Okay, using the actual laptop itself isn't great for full-time use, right? They're not necessarily designed for you to be sitting hunched over on your laptop for 7 to 8 hours a day, okay, or even less than that. So if you can use an external monitor, have an external keyboard and mouse, this can really help with your ergonomics. Because by doing that, what you could do is lift your laptop up on a box or something and bring it up to eye level. Because a lot of that, if you can bring your vision up in this sort of manner, then it's going to kind of bring your neck and it's just going to bring you up into that nice upright posture, right? So having these peripherals can be a low cost solution, right? There's wireless keyboards and mice now that you can buy on Amazon for really cheap. So this is definitely something, if you haven't done already, I would strongly recommend it. You know, ideally too, what you can do is buy an external monitor as well, which the prices have come down as well. And then you can kind of have your laptop plugged into that external monitor. Okay, so another thing is if you regularly talk on the phone, you can get some headphones, right? That also allows you potentially the ability to walk around the house when you're taking some calls. So the next thing would be to experiment with periodic standing, right? So as I mentioned, standing can be an interesting one. I have several colleagues who are studying this to try to determine what are the best ratios of sit to stand. And, you know, it's still being studied to this day, because the fact of the matter is everyone's different. Some people can stand for an hour without any pain at all. Some people can start developing pain after just 5 minutes of standing. So, you know, you can test this in your own workplace, right? You know, or just working at your kitchen countertop, if you stack your laptop on a couple books or a box or something like that, the goal is you still want to try to have nice neutral postures all throughout. Right, that 90-degree elbow angle in order to maintain this posture, right, and not be slouching over like you see in this picture. You're going to likely have to raise that laptop up even further. Right, there are solutions too that you've probably seen these convertible sit-stand office stations where, you know, you can sit and then you just pull a lever and the whole device with your keyboard and monitor will go up with you. So that's something you can do, but before spending the couple $100 on that, you can just try this out for yourself. Okay. Another thing I'll say is, you know, this one may not always be possible depending on your situation, but try to define your workspace, right? Something that is specifically designed for you that you ideally don't have to adjust every single day. Okay, so, you know, if you do pick out a chair in your house and you have the towel and you have some sort of pillow over top of it, like that's your chair, right? And you don't want your kids to be grabbing stuff. And so the next time you come to work, it's not there and you're just like, okay, whatever, I'll just work the way that I have right now. So if you define your own workspace, this is always good. That's why the dinner table, kids' desks, things like that aren't ideal. Okay, and you know, in those sorts of environments, you have mental distractions as well, which that's another form of ergonomics too, trying to eliminate these mental distractions and cognitive disturbances when you're doing your work. It's tempting when you're at home, but you really have to try to stay away from the couch. You know, obviously every now and then maybe you're kind of going through some emails at nighttime or something, you know, that's obviously okay, but you really shouldn't be spending the bulk of your day there. Especially, you know, say you work on the couch all day and then at nighttime you unplug for the day, but now you're sitting on the couch all night watching Netflix, right? Your low back doesn't care whether you're doing work or whether you're, you know, enjoying TV. So you got to be a little bit careful about that. So try to separate that working space from your relax and fun space. It contributes both to the variability and different postures, but, you know, it's just a good mental practice as well. Okay, and the last thing I'll mention are just a couple recommendations I'll categorize as moving around. So try to get in the habit of walking around the house during phone calls. That's an easy way to get yourself up and out of the chair and get some blood flow, keep your muscles loose. Try to stand and stretch when you're in a virtual call or doing some sort of a light reading task. That's what I like to do if I have to read something, or, you know, occasionally, usually when I'll do a video call, I'll use that opportunity to stand. Take micro breaks every 45 to 60 minutes. This can be hard. Sometimes you get in a flow state and you're in the zone and you're working. Before you know it, 3 hours have passed and you haven't moved out of your chair. So if you're prone to this, you can set a calendar reminder, or you can program cell phone alarms every 30 minutes or, you know, 45 minutes just to remind you to just stand up, stretch, you know, do one of these types of things. And that will really help prolong and reduce pain overall. Another hint is to try to drink lots of water. Okay, this obviously has benefits. We're all probably chronically dehydrated, or many of us are. I know I am. I drink probably 3 times as much coffee as I do water every day. But by drinking a lot of water, that has the benefit of, you know, introducing variability when you're going to fill up your water constantly. And then it also brings you to the washroom probably a couple times a day as well, which again, breaks that cycle of sitting down for 3 hours. Okay, as I mentioned, you can set up that secondary workspace in your house, just kind of moving from one spot to another. Maybe you have a spot that you like to take your meetings. Maybe you have another spot that you like to do some writing in. Okay, and the other hint too is just move before you feel fatigued and sore, right? By the time you're starting to feel pain or starting to feel tingling, it's too late at that point, right? You've kind of been at it for too long. So you really need to try to be proactive and preventative in these strategies. So just have a couple more minutes. So that's kind of the office ergo or working at home ergonomics portion. But I also wanted to talk a little bit about technology and the future vision of ergonomics. With this being Ontario Tech University and one of the large focuses on incorporation of technology in the advancement of our future. So this is something that I kind of spend my research area on. I do a lot of research in this realm. So one of the things I wanted to kind of talk about where we're going in more advanced, especially in manufacturing sectors, are using things like digital human models and work simulation. So digital human models basically just a virtual representation of a human. So it kind of represents our anatomy and in some cases like our physiology, our motor control, our biomechanics. And it allows us to insert these digital humans. We can put all shapes and sizes into our virtual renderings of environments. So these CAD environments, and we can actually put these humans in and start to do some ergonomics assessments up front. Right? And the big benefit to this, and I'll show you, we even have dynamic versions of this now too, where our digital human models can be programmed into these work simulations. So we can actually, throughout this entire sequence of building this car here, we can look at what the loading is on the back and in the shoulder. We can start to account for maybe some muscle fatigue if we're working at too high of a repetition level. We can look at strength demands if people are going to be leading to an overexertion over time. Okay, so this is, I would say, kind of the pinnacle of ergonomics now, a proactive ergonomics approach where assessments are done before this job even exists in reality. And you can imagine the cost savings that happen, right? If you try to identify any red flag issues from an ergonomics perspective before a plant is built or an assembly line is built. Okay, so this is where I've spent quite a bit of my career trying to optimize these digital human models and specifically optimize some of the ergonomics assessments we can do within these models, right? Try to represent our actual physiology, anatomy, and biomechanics as closely as possible. Okay, and then another thing we can do within these digital human model and work simulation approaches is not only represent the biomechanics, but also some of the neurophysiology. So we have tools available that we can try to figure out if we're working at certain workloads. So for example, in this figure here, say you're exerting a force at a certain medium level, then you have a break. Then you exert a force at a high level, then you have a break. And then you need to maybe push in a little push pin or something at a very low force level. Okay, well, how does the order of those different force exertions influence the overall level of fatigue? Right, so those are the types of things we're using computer simulations with my PhD student Ryan Foley's using some computer simulations to try to figure out what is the best order effect that we can apply in order to come up with some best case scenarios for this. Okay, and then the other way that we're starting to integrate motion capture and VR, augmented reality, virtual reality. This is another place that's really kind of exploding right now. And instead of just guessing now what our digital human models, guessing at the postures people would get into, we can instrument people in our laboratories and actually collect their motion and get very natural and realistic motions, and then conduct our ergo assessments on them using actual human data. So, it's not an engineer just trying to guess, well, I think I would go into this posture, right? And then that even opens up potential for manipulation, like, oh, if I just rotate the arm this way, then I can pass. This would be an ergo pass. Okay, so this allows us to bring real operators into laboratories, and we can again do our virtual proactive assessments, right? But kind of with the best, most accurate data possible. In the last area that we're really kind of focusing our attention on is the use of exoskeletons. And this is something too where, if you look at the ergonomics literature in the last year or two, there's just an explosion of people trying to incorporate these. And the idea of these exoskeletons are that, it's kind of a wearable device that is meant to unload. In some cases, these are upper limb or shoulder exoskeletons. So we have these cuffs here that are meant to unload the weight of the arms, right? They're attached onto these spring and damper mechanisms, and it effectively will make your arms not as heavy when you're doing overhead work, right? So we're doing a trial right now in collaboration with General Motors, kind of evaluating a couple of these exoskeletons. So we've simulated automotive assembly work in our lab, and we're trying to evaluate how do these exoskeletons work? Do they really reduce the loading on the shoulder? And also, are people likely to keep using them? Are they comfortable? Right? And we see exoskeletons not just for the shoulder, but people are using them for back, for the low back as well. So to support some of this lifting. And there's even really cool technology now in these active exoskeletons, like like a glove that has motors within it and actually give you more strength when you grip onto objects, right? So you can basically get 2 or 3 times as much grip strength from using some of these devices. So this is where we're going in the future, just to kind of show you kind of the current and where we're going. So that is all I have prepared for you today. So thanks so much for your attention, and I'd be happy to take any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Nick. That was really great and excellent tips. I know I will definitely be keeping some of them in mind as I'm working from home. Super interesting to hear about that glove thing that you described just now. So that ties into my first question for you is, how prevalent are these two new technologies in current workspaces, or are they really just kind of pie in the sky?
Nice incorporation of pie. Yeah, I would say we're kind of at a point now. You're right, like some of those advanced manufacturing, the digital human models, those are really being used by some of the bigger companies in the world, like all the big automotive manufacturers and Amazons and all those big players. So they're starting to use that. It's becoming more and more accessible though as time goes on, especially some of the virtual reality stuff. A lot of even students that I know have virtual reality headsets, right? So, and they're starting to play around with some of this stuff too, and thinking about doing basic ergonomics assessments. It's something I might even try to incorporate in an undergrad lab next year through support from this initiative. And then exoskeletons as well. They're in a big evaluation phase, I would say right now. There's a lot of research being done just to make sure that not only do they work, but are they actually doing harm, right? We're still trying to make sure that if they're beneficial, they're not doing any harm, and they're worth the investment, right? And the prices for these things are starting to come down into a category where I can definitely see some exoskeletons being used by people in the trades. For example, if you're a painter, right, and you spend a lot of time in an overhead work posture, investing in a $1,500 exoskeleton could be definitely a good investment for you. It could prolong your career. So yeah, we're definitely starting to see, especially on the exoskeleton side, and I think in the next few years we're going to see a lot more people gaining access to some of those more advanced techniques as well.
Now, you mentioned setting alarms on your devices for getting up and breaks and stuff. Now, there's also browser add-ons and ones that like tell you need to rest your eyes right now, or it's time to stretch. So do you know of any other browsers or apps that we should be maybe incorporating into our daily routines?
That's a good question. I don't specifically know of any, but I do know that they're available. So yeah, I'm not sure of specific names of ones, but what I do is if I know I am getting into bad habits, I just have pre-programmed alarms for the afternoon, basically on 45-minute intervals. So I just kind of set those. You can set something in your own calendar too. But no, that's a good point. I'm sure there is good software out there that can help facilitate some of this.
Now, it feels like ergonomics is always a hot topic. So do you find that your students are arriving at Ontario Tech aware of the importance of good ergonomics, or do you think that we still have a ways to go with educating the general public? It's been a little bit of a weird time in the last 2 years. So are people more cognizant of that now, or do you think that it's like, what do you mean I have to sit in my chair properly?
Yeah, I think as a society, everyone is a little more aware of ergonomics. As I mentioned in the talk about, 10 years ago, I think there is generally not really much of an awareness of ergonomics. But I would say now that the average person definitely knows ergonomics, and they probably even know, what are some good ergonomics? Like generally, how should I adjust my chair? So in terms of our students, we kind of reinforce it fairly early on in our kinesiology program, where I kind of have an opportunity. I teach biomechanics as well. So I'm always kind of hinting at, how can this be applicable to the workplace? Because,
Right.
in kinesiology, we're always thinking of, sports things and sports applications and injuries. But the reality is a lot of the injuries they get are from the workplace and not some traumatic sporting injury. So it's highly relevant and important, especially a lot of our students go on into fields like physiotherapy and occupational therapy. So I think we do a fairly good job at our university. There's still, I would say though, once they come into ergonomics, the first day of class, I barely even talk about office ergo, right? So I think that's kind of wanted to talk about the scope of ergonomics in this talk. It's more than just setting a chair, maybe, lifting with your legs. There's a lot more to it on the manufacturing side and, in the trades, construction, healthcare, ergonomics. There's a whole wide world out there, and there are tools available, and education can be done to improve ergonomics across the board.
And bringing it back to education, we have a question wanting to know if we here at Ontario Tech work with our engineering students to develop these exoskeletons. Is that something you guys have considered or currently doing now?
Yeah, so the exoskeleton research is fairly new for us. We were kind of, we're working with a partner at GM, and right now we're doing an evaluation of commercially available products, kind of to help inform our industrial partners, what direction might they want to go. So we personally don't do any exoskeleton development now. I'm not sure. I can definitely see some of the people in our, mechatronic engineering department, for example, doing some work in that regard. So I can definitely, I'm definitely curious to hear about that, and I definitely think there's potential collaboration opportunities there. I'm not much of a designer, like I'm not an engineer, so I think about it more from the human body perspective and how can they be used to supplement the human body. So I think it could be a very valuable collaboration, right? To have someone who understands specifically mechanics of the body, and then, someone on the industrial engineer side or exoskeleton engineering design side.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of talk about finding the proper chair and the standing desk and stuff, but we have a question about the different kind of options for ergonomic keyboards on the market, like the Microsoft Sculpt. Do you have any tips for finding the right keyboard for your needs?
Yeah, keyboards are something that you've seen like a whole lot of variations over the time. There's still some crazy options out there, things that don't even resemble a keyboard at all. Like they might be basically like a triangle, right? It's like a keyboard, a flat keyboard that you kind of collapse into a triangle, so you kind of type like this. So there's a whole bunch of wacky solutions out there. I would say, a typical keyboard generally works fine. If anything, having a keyboard with a little bit of a rotation towards the outwards, because when you type on a flat keyboard, you tend to go into a little bit of what's called ulnar deviation. So you kind of bend your wrist sideways, right? So by getting one of those slightly curved keyboards, it can actually bring your wrists into a little more of a neutral posture, right? So if anything, that type of a solution works. The other recommendation I have for keyboards is, if you use your number pad often, that's one thing, but personally I don't tend to use my number pad that often. So I actually use a keyboard that, it just kind of stops with the letters, right? It doesn't have that bulky number pad on the side, because the nice thing then I can move my mouse closer to my keyboard, and I'm not reaching out to the side and reaching forward to operate my mouse, which I use probably 95% of the time when I'm using my keyboard, because I have a bulky number pad that never gets used in the way. So I do have a couple, those are kind of my general recommendations, but a lot of it comes down to feel and fit. People have large hands, for example. Some people have very small hands. Just try to stay away from using your laptop keyboard. That's
there you
the main
go.
recommendation.
Now, you've mentioned neutral joint posture several times during your talk. And how do we know when we've achieved appropriate posture?
Yeah, a lot of times if you're not in a correct posture, like over a longer period of time, your body will tell you.
Yeah.
Right? Our body is a pretty good judge of that. We develop pain if we're in postures that aren't necessarily great for us. I mean, part of that comes down to education, kind of understanding, that you should really have a roughly 90 degree or so knee angle, and your elbow should roughly be at around 90 degrees as well. Right. So if you kind of use those as the key joint angle indicators in your body, as well as a nice neutral spine, kind of a lot of it flows from there. Okay. So I guess, education is kind of the reality there. But, if you do have upper, like, let's say trap pain or neck pain after long days of work, that could be a hint that maybe your posture isn't set up well. Or maybe you do have a great chair, like you've adjusted it perfectly or had it professionally adjusted, but your monitor is too low, right? Or maybe your vision isn't ideally corrected, or you're not wearing glasses or should be wearing a higher prescription level. Some of those things can actually draw, let's say that you're not having great vision, that might draw you closer to your screen to have better visualization, which of course affects your entire body. So there's kind of little things. I would say listen to your body. If you're experiencing pain with work, then that's a good sign that there's probably something wrong that you need to revisit.
Great. Well, this has been fantastic, Nick, and we really appreciate you being here and sharing your expertise with us today. So thank you for that.
Yeah, not a problem.
Thanks
for
so
having
much.
me.
Now, this is our 5th annual Pi Day of Giving, where we celebrate the infinite possibilities of our students here at Ontario Tech. And these past 2 years have been hard on everyone. And I'm not just talking back pain. And our students are still feeling the effects of this pandemic. So I hope that everyone on the call today will make a gift in support of our Student Relief Fund to help students who are experiencing financial need. All donations will be matched dollar for dollar thanks to our Matching Funds program. I'm happy to share that our Student Relief Fund has already provided more than $500,000 to students in need, and that's in addition to our regular scholarship and bursary program. I'd like to give a big shout out to Scotiabank for their generous sponsorship of our Pi Day of Giving speaker series. And I really thank you all for joining us today. I really do hope you continue to share your lunch hour with us over the next 2 weeks for the remainder of our speaker series. We have some really great topics coming up, including health in the digital age, CSI at Ontario Tech, which is something I'm super excited about. You can find more information about those talks and their speakers at ontariotechu.ca/Pi Day. Now, before we say goodbye, I'd like to share a really short message from one of our amazing students here at Ontario Tech. Thanks so much and enjoy the rest of your day, everybody.
There's a celebration going on at Ontario Tech. For the past 5 years, we've been coming together on March 14th on Pi Day of Giving in support of Ontario Tech students. There are infinite reasons why students choose to study here, why alumni are proud to have graduated from here, why professors continue to teach here, and why staff come to work here every day. With your help, we are reimagining our modern approach to learning through the lens of technology. We are delivering an educational experience that meets students in the world we live in today and prepares us for the world we will create tomorrow. Our state-of-the-art buildings provide students with innovative, flexible learning spaces, including collaborative labs and classrooms with leading-edge technology. In these spaces, students can turn ideas into action and make an immediate impact on our world. When you make a gift on Pi Day, you're helping to create future leaders who will contribute and thrive in today's world. You're making an impact that resonates and touches all of us. When you give, we all receive. So this Pi Day, let's celebrate and count all the ways that we can work together to create a brighter future and deliver infinite possibilities for students like me.